Hello and welcome back to Courts in Session. I'm Sage Hurley. Where's Ray? I told you guys he was a bad driver. Let me make some calls. Hello and welcome back to Courts in Session. I'm Sage Hurley.
Obviously, I am not Ray Dunn, and for the first time ever on desk, I'm Brielle Berry, sitting in for Ray, who will be back next week.
Two women on desk, so let's start with the women's team. Their record book needed yet another update after the Owls game against ECU, and this time it had nothing to do with Mia Davis. Freshman Anaya Gourdain recorded 13 points, 10 assists, and 11 rebounds. That makes her the first freshman in AAC history to notch a triple-double.
But let's not get crazy in dissing Mia. She did lead all scorers in Temple's win over the Pirates with 22, your final 60-59. Let's move to Wednesday night, the women hosting the 16-6 Bulls of South Florida at McGonigal Hall. Here's Mia Davis driving to the rim where she gets an and one. Davis led all scorers with 14. Both teams could not get anything going offensively, with the Owls shooting just 29% from the field on the night. At the half, the Owls were down 11 and managed to get back within 3. Temple opened up the third quarter on a 9-2 run, but it just wasn't enough. In the last few minutes of the fourth quarter, the Bulls knocked down several free throws to secure the win. Temple has now lost twice to South Florida this season, and they now sit at 11-10 overall.
Now let's head back to the record books. This week I caught up with the Marilyn Stevens, class of '84. Yes, it's the same Stevens who held the all-time scoring record for 38 years until Mia Davis broke it last Wednesday.
I've had that record for 38 years and, it's older than my children. I've had it for so long that my grandchildren can appreciate it. And I don't mind sharing. I did call Mia. I did talk to her mother and congratulate them both. And I told her mother to enjoy the atmosphere and her daughter's success, like how my mom enjoyed my success. But I enjoyed my time at Temple. It was great. I met some great people. Tina Sloan Green, our professor, Dr. Nikki Frank, and at the time, my athletic director, Alpha Alexander. They were my mentors. And they used to show me, and they were parents and coaches. And I was like, wow, how can they do it all? And I just watched them, and they were successful in caring about, their students. I really am excited that, I've been a pioneer for someone else to carry the torch. Now it's continuing.
It was so great to hear from Marilyn. But as for Mia, her list of accolades just does not stop growing. For the third straight year, she's been named a finalist for the Cheryl Miller Award, an honor given to the Basketball Hall of Fame's Small Forward of the Year. Davis made the short list of 10 finalists, among the likes of names from top 25 nationally ranked teams, such as Iowa State, Indiana, Oklahoma, Louisville, Kentucky, and number 3, Stanford. Let's put that into perspective. Temple's ranked 105th in the country. That means Mia is getting some well-deserved recognition alongside some of the most talented players in the entire country.
Since the last show, the men's team has played 2 games and went 1-1 during that stretch. On Saturday, Temple defeated Tulsa 67-58, and on Monday, the Owls were defeated in what was an ugly game at South Florida, losing 52-49.
Yes, that game in South Florida was the Owls' lowest scoring effort since that crushing 75-48 loss to Clemson at the Charleston Classic in November. It was their second game in 48 hours, and it showed. The Owls looked tired and played down to USF level this time, the Bulls went 1 for 12 from 3 and still came out with the win.
Freshman guard Jalen Dunn was named to the AAC and Big 5 weekly honor roll this past week. He scored a game-high 26 points in his home state against East Carolina. Following that, he had 11 points in the Owls' win over Tulsa, helping Temple go 2-0 that week. Courts and Sessions' very own Ray Dunn took the trip down to Greenville, North Carolina to watch the Owls take on the Pirates. While down there, he had the chance to sit down with Dunn's high school coaches, members of the Kinston Hoops community, and Dunn's father.
Jalen Dunn has become Temple's closer this year, a role that has a lot to do with his opening act in Kinston, North Carolina.
With 2, Dunn, sidestep 3 for the win! It's good! Jalen Dunn does it again! A game-winning 3 for Jalen Dunn!
Damien's hometown of Kinston has amassed fame as a breeding ground for hoops talent. 1 in every 53 players that have played for Kinston High School have gone on to the NBA, the highest per capita in the world.
The beauty of Kinston, North Carolina is that the kids here in Kinston, they grow up wanting to be a Viking. They grow up wanting to wear that K on their chest and win a state championship ring and be eventually in a Hall of Fame.
You know, they have a tradition and a blueprint to follow because we've had so many basketball stars that has came from Kinston that went on to college and went on to the NBA or went overseas and played basketball. So these kids know that, hey, Brandon Ingram, Jerry Stackhouse, these guys went to Rochelle Middle School. These guys went to Kinston High School. If they can make it, I can make it. So it gives them a blueprint to follow, and it gives them all hope.
You know, people say, well, how does this keep happening? And that's a big piece. I mean, any kid that lives in any little area and in this community can find a rec center that they can go play basketball. And some kids are the happiest just getting in the gym and playing basketball. And so to have that ability goes a long way.
I provided an opportunity for those kids to get off the street, and not just during business hours, after hours. I used to get on those kids about calling their parents, and the parents gave them permission. As long as Mr. Ingram is still there, I don't mind you still remaining in the gym. That took away from those kids getting out on the street and getting in trouble.
Beyond the town, Damien had 3 at-home trainers in his dad and 2 older brothers.
He had 3 sons, and he was telling me how good they was gonna be. But he always bragged on the youngest son that he was gonna be better than all of them.
You know, Damien always ended up crying because he couldn't hit a shot. His brothers was blocking his shot, and, you know, growing up in a basketball town, basketball family, you know, you don't want to give him anything, make him earn it. And then until that one day came where he finally scored on his brothers, and that just kind of took it to a whole nother level.
And taking him home, I remember seeing the goal in the driveway, and you know, you just know that those were just battles back in the day.
Yeah, man, I tell you, you know, I've got 7 state championship rings in my house between my 3 guys.
A big piece of Jalen Dunn's development came here at the Woodman Community Center, where he and his brothers played and his father later worked.
I did work there, and Dame spent a lot of time in there. But I think it really, everything started at Rochelle Middle School.
He looked like a man amongst boys in middle school. He was an athlete, yo. He was a freak.
His name and his game translated to high school, where Damien was the star of Kinston High School for 3 years. While he transferred to a high school in Georgia for his senior year, he and his game will always reflect Kinston.
We have a saying around here that we go by, Kinston tough. If you can play Kinston basketball, if you can play in Kinston, then you can play anywhere in the world.
And then if you had to boil Jalen Dunn, his game down to a word, what would that word be?
Smooth.
Discipline.
Mamba mentality, man. I know you said a word, but Mamba.
There's a lot to describe Damian, but I would have to say Damian humble. He's a very humble kid.
Dunn is currently leading the Owls in scoring with just over 15 points per game, which puts him at 7th in the AAC.
The most wonderful time of the year is quickly approaching. And yes, I'm talking March. We are just 1 month out from the AAC tournament. Then it's time for the big dance. But first, let's talk Temple.
With the men's team's recent loss to South Florida, it's extremely unlikely they will make March Madness. But now we welcome in Owl Sports Update's Jacob Smedley, who is over at the studio set to tell us what the men's and women's teams need to do in order to make a different postseason tournament, the one with 3 letters.
Thanks, guys. The Owls are 11-10 overall and 6-4 in conference play. In my eyes, Tanya Cardozo's squad has to win 4 of its next 6, including matchups against UCF, SMU, and Tulane. Wins against those teams would put the Owls in prime position to make the WNIT tournament, a stage the team has not advanced to since 2016. Over to the Liacouras Center. The men are 13-8 overall and 6-4 in conference play. With over half of the remaining 7 games being on the road, Aaron McKee's squad has to get some revenge wins over SMU, Houston, and South Florida. Due to the Owls' 4th place conference standing and a loss to the 7-14 USF Bulls on Monday, Temple's chances of dancing this year are very low. A shot at the NIT, which the Owls haven't appeared in since the 2017-18 season, is within reach if Temple can continue to play as well as it has since the new year. Last year, the Americans sent 2 teams to March Madness and 2 teams to the NIT. A top 4 finish is a almost must for both teams. Brielle and Sage, back to you.
I know I said this last show, but Ray will be back on desk with me next week, unless he's got a great doctor's note. Until then, check out our sports brief on Monday, Owl Access Pass with Lindsay Moppert on Tuesday, our brand new podcast on Wednesday, then our flagship live show with Emily Cochran and Max Gratzula on Thursday. Once again, that's 5 whole days of Owl Sport update coverage, and if you're lucky, we'll tweet a lot over the weekend too.
That wraps up this edition of Courts in Session. Ray Dunn will be back on the desk next week.
It was a pleasure sharing the studio with my sister in sports, but I know Ray's out there somewhere counting down the days until he can reclaim his throne. Me, I'll be counting down the days till March. For Brielle Berry, I'm Sage Hurley. Court's adjourned.